The room was lit like a movie set. Cameras clicked in waves. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. And at the center of it all, she appeared, Ivanka Trump. Wrapped in a snow-white power suit, every thread screaming status. Her walk was polished, camera-ready. Her smile, practiced, public, presidential. She moved like someone who had never been told no. The Republican side of the committee stood. Some even applauded. To them, she wasn't just a witness. She was royalty. But something felt off. Not in the lights, not in the room, in the air. It was the weight of what hadn't yet been said. And across the chamber, without applause, without cameras, without any trace of performance, sat Jasmine Crockett. No smile, no nod, just silence. And in that silence, the story began. Jasmine didn't stand. She didn't shout. She didn't even raise her voice. She just leaned forward and placed a thick, sealed brown envelope on the table in front of her, carefully, quietly, like setting down a loaded weapon. The room, already still, became breathless. Reporters froze. Aides' pens stopped mid-sentence. Cameras tilted forward, lenses zooming in without blinking. Then Jasmine spoke. Not to Ivanka, not to the room, but to the truth itself. Before I ask any questions, I want to show something. Something no one here was ever supposed to see. The sentence was soft, but it hit like a strike of thunder under the marble ceiling. Ivanka's smile twitched. Donald Trump, watching live, reportedly gripped the arms of his chair. Jasmine didn't move. She simply rested her palm on top of the envelope. Firm, steady, as if telling the world, not yet, but soon. The screen behind Jasmine flickered once, then held steady. No music, no voiceover, no spin, just footage, raw, grainy. Shot from a corner security camera that had no idea it was about to change history. A girl, 13 years old, so small she barely rose above the sewing machine in front of her. Her hands wrapped in thin gauze moved in slow, painful repetition. Red stains bled through the cloth. Her eyes were puffy, half awake, half defeated. She didn't look up, she just kept sewing. And in the bottom corner of the screen, white text appeared, Alejandra Rios, age 13, San Pedro, Honduras. In the gallery, a reporter gasped. On the Republican bench, someone cleared their throat, too late to seem composed. And across the room, Ivanka Trump's smile finally cracked. The corner of her mouth stiffened. Her fingers tapped faster. She leaned back just slightly as if trying to create space between her and the screen. But it was too late. America had seen her dress. And now they had seen the hands that made it. Jasmine didn't rush. She didn't raise her voice. She let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then she said it. One name. Soft but sharp enough to cut through marble. Her name is Alejandra. Not the girl in the video. Not a victim. Not an allegation. Alejandra, a real child, with a name, a birth certificate, a fingerprint on a time card, and a voice that no one had ever bothered to hear. Jasmine looked straight ahead. She didn't turn to Ivanka. She didn't look for approval. She simply spoke as if she were giving back something that had been stolen. She worked 14-hour days, in a factory with no windows. Her hands bled. Her throat burned. But her name was never supposed to leave that building. Now it had. And no one in the room, not even Ivanka, could put it back. Jasmine reached into the envelope again. This time she didn't pull out a photo. She pulled out a piece of paper. White, thin, slightly creased at the corners. but heavy with consequence. She held it up so every camera could see, then laid it flat on the table slowly like it might explode if moved too fast. "This," she said, "is a wire transfer slip from White Thread International, the primary overseas supplier for Ivanka Trump's clothing line." She tapped one line with her finger, just once. Amount, $3,200. Note, Risk Class B, final offer. The room went cold. It wasn't the money, it was the meaning. Alejandra Rios, 13 years old, 14-hour shifts, no medical care, no protection. Her pain was bought for $3,200. Jasmine didn't shout. She didn't need to. That wasn't a wage. That wasn't justice. That was a payoff to make her disappear like a broken machine part you toss in the trash. Ivanka sat frozen, her fingers curled under the table. Jasmine looked out at the room. "Tell me, when did a child become a line item?" Ivanka shifted in her seat. For the first time since the hearing began, her confidence cracked. Not loudly, but like a hairline fracture in glass. "I was not involved in this transaction," she said, voice still composed, but just barely. "I don't sign off on every factory shipment. This must have been handled by subcontractors." Jasmine didn't flinch. She reached calmly into the envelope and pulled out another document. Crisp, labeled, unmistakable. She unfolded it like a verdict. "This," Jasmine said, "is an export order for shipment 43DW White Dress Davos Collection." She placed the page on the table, then tapped the bottom corner. The camera zoomed in. There it was. Ivanka Trump signed in blue ink. No initials, no assistant, just her full name. Silence. Ivanka stared at the paper. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Under the table, her hand clenched. There was nowhere left to hide. Not behind her brand, not behind her lawyers, not behind her father's noise. Because the evidence wasn't just a claim. It was her signature. Jasmine picked up a new folder. It wasn't flashy. No warning labels. No bold red stamps. Just plain white paper, the kind that usually disappears into filing cabinets and gets forgotten. She opened it slowly, methodically, and began to lay the pages out across the table. "These," she said, "are non-disclosure agreements, issued to children who couldn't even read them." A ripple moved through the room. Jasmine pointed to a clause, highlighted. Clause 4B. Any employee who shares information with U.S. media, foreign press, or congressional bodies will face immediate contract termination and deportation proceedings. Gasps from the gallery, from the press bench, even from a few lawmakers who had been silent until now. Jasmine didn't look up. She just kept laying out more pages, each NDA signed with a shaky X, some with smudged fingerprints, none with understanding. "This isn't just business," she said. "This is coercion, signed in silence and enforced by fear." Ivanka sat motionless. But her lawyer shifted. Everyone in the room realized these weren't just documents, they were weapons. The room shifted, not in noise, but in energy. Because someone stood up from the second row. A woman, mid-30s, glasses, gray blazer, hands shaking just enough to notice. "My name is Rachel Lynn," she said, her voice steadying as she spoke. "I was a brand assistant for Ivanka Trump Apparel from 2017 to 2019. All eyes turned, even Ivanka's. Jasmine leaned back in her chair silent, like she had been waiting for this moment. Rachel pulled out a slim black folder, held it up. "I was instructed," she said, "to destroy several internal documents, including medical reports, overtime logs, and formal complaints filed by workers in South America and Southeast Asia." The silence deepened. When I questioned it, I was told, "Don't ask questions if you want to stay employed." Rachel's hands trembled slightly. But she didn't stop. These girls, they weren't statistics. I met them. I translated their complaints. I saw the bruises. I held the mother who begged me not to let her daughter be deported. A tear rolled down her cheek, and I did nothing. Until now. Ivanka looked frozen. Jasmine finally spoke. "Miss Lin, did you personally see documentation linking Ivanka Trump's signature to those destroyed reports?" Rachel nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I shredded 2 pages myself." Her signature was at the bottom of both. Gasps again. But this time, colder. Not shock, confirmation. Jasmine paused. Her hand hovered over a small folded piece of paper. No official stamp, no company logo, just a child's handwriting, barely legible through faded ink and torn edges. She held it up. This was found inside a finished shipment box from a factory in Sonsonate, El Salvador, stuffed inside a seam pocket of a dress meant for Ivanka Trump's spring line. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the press stopped typing. "It's not a complaint," Jasmine said. "It's not a report." She unfolded it slowly. A single sentence, written with a pencil so faint it had to be enhanced for legibility. She read it aloud. "If I disappear, please tell them I was real." No one moved. A tear rolled down Jasmine's cheek. Ivanka looked away. Rachel covered her mouth. One lawmaker whispered, "Dear God." Jasmine's voice broke, not from weakness, but from holding something sacred. Her name was Alejandra. She wasn't a statistic. She was 13. And her last words were stuffed into a pocket because no one ever listened when she spoke. The silence in the room became a scream without sound. There was no build-up this time, no speech, no preamble, just a click, and the screen lit up again. A single photo, grainy. Taken by a smuggled cell phone, the chamber gasped. It showed a tiled floor, a bathroom stall with peeling paint and rusted pipes. In the center, a girl, curled on the ground, one hand limp, the other still gripping a piece of thread. Her name was Alejandra, and she was no longer moving. No one could breathe, not even Ivanka, not even her lawyer, not even the aides who moments ago had been whispering. The image stayed on screen for 5 seconds, but it felt like forever. Jasmine didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The truth was louder than anything she could have spoken. She let the image burn into the room, into their eyes, into their memories, until the only thing left was silence and shame. No camera dared turn away. No network cut to commercial, because what was on that screen was no longer politics. It was a crime scene. Ivanka reached for the water glass. Her hand shook, missed. The glass tipped slightly. She caught it, but water splashed across the table. She didn't look up, didn't try to speak, didn't even wipe the water. Her fingers just stayed there, gripping the glass like it was the only solid thing left in a world that had started crumbling. Across from her, Jasmine didn't blink, didn't pause, didn't offer comfort. "Miss Trump," she said, voice steady, "we are still under oath." Ivanka finally looked up, just for a moment, eyes red, chin trembling. No words. And in that moment, America saw something it never had before. Not the businesswoman, not the first daughter, not the polished brand, but a woman cornered by truth and cracked wide open. Jasmine leaned forward, calm, precise, ruthless. Alejandra didn't get to hide behind lawyers, she said. She didn't have PR. She had a needle, a deadline, and blood on her hands. The room stayed frozen. Ivanka tried to speak, but her lips parted without sound. Jasmine turned back to the chairman. "I'm not done. I have more." Somewhere hundreds of miles south in the gilded privacy of Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump was watching the hearing unfold on a secured live feed. And then he snapped. Phones rang in the chamber. Aides froze. One staffer turned white as he answered. "Mr. Chairman, he's on the line." Jasmine didn't flinch. The speaker held up a hand, confused. "Who?" "Former President Trump," the aide whispered. "He's demanding to speak." Then, before anyone could stop it, a voice boomed, patched through the committee line, echoing across the chamber walls. "This is fake news. That girl doesn't exist. None of this is real." Ivanka jolted in her seat, her hands trembling. Every reporter reached for their phone. But Jasmine, she just leaned toward the mic, eyes like steel. Calm, unbothered. "You're right, Mr. Trump," she said. "There is a witch in this story, and she's wearing your daughter's dress." Gasps, clicking shutters, TV anchors whispering into live mics. Ivanka stared at the desk, frozen. And somewhere in Mar-a-Lago, Trump went silent, for the first time. Jasmine stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She held up a plain cardboard shipping box, scuffed, taped, ordinary. But across the side, one thing stood out. Ivanka Collection, printed in gold. She turned the box slowly so the cameras could see. Then she opened it. Inside, children-sized tags, fabric with blood stains, tiny needle packets with names scratched in pencil. "This," Jasmine said, "is what women's empowerment looks like when it's printed by a PR firm and stitched by a terrified child." The room held its breath. "Every blouse in here," she continued, "was marketed as a symbol of independence." She paused. "But each one was sewn by a girl too afraid to speak." Jasmine pointed to a line in the brand's mission statement projected onto the chamber screen. "Ivanka Collection designed by women for women." She circled a word. "Designed," she asked, eyes narrowing. "Or extracted from pain you refuse to acknowledge?" Someone in the audience audibly gasped. "You sold the illusion of liberation," Jasmine said, "but every tag carries a lie wrapped in pink script and tied with silence." Ivanka looked away. The room didn't. Jasmine didn't rush. She simply laid 3 more envelopes on the desk, each one labeled by hand, each one holding a story. She opened the first. Inside, a receipt, another $3.20 payment, same memo line. Risk Class B, final offer. The name on this one, Likua M. The second envelope, same contents, another $3.20, same code. This time, Noor H, a girl from Morocco, age 12. The third, a whisper of paper, a signature. The name, Min Tweet, Vietnam, age 14. Deported, no record since. "They weren't accidents," Jasmine said. "They were protocol." The chamber froze again. "This wasn't about one girl," she continued. "It was about a system built to silence every one of them." One by one, Jasmine read their names, not like statistics, but like girls who once laughed, who once dreamed, and whose hands were forced to build a brand they could never wear. "We know their names now," Jasmine said, quietly. But they knew they'd never be remembered. Across the aisle, even a Republican aide wiped her eyes. It started with a single notification, then 10, then 100. News alerts flooded screens nationwide. CNN, breaking, documents link Ivanka Trump brand to child labor. MSNBC, former Ivanka aide confirms internal knowledge. Fox News went silent. That's when it shifted. Brands began pulling out. Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, Saks. All issued statements, "We take these allegations seriously. Our partnership with Ivanka Trump is now under review. Effective immediately, we are ceasing all sales. The Ivanka collection's website crashed, then vanished. Social media exploded. Justice for Alejandra, she was real, blood on the thread. And then the investors came, but not to help, to leave. 3 major backers pulled funding. The 4th publicly demanded repayment. Jasmine never smiled. She wasn't there for vengeance. Empires fall, she whispered, when built on the backs of children. In the background, a security aide whispered to a senator, "Sir, Mar-a-Lago's legal team just filed an emergency injunction. They're panicking." For the first time in years, Ivanka's power wasn't just questioned, it was crumbling. It wasn't planned. No press team, no entourage. Just a girl in white, 12 years old, straight black hair. Eyes that had seen more than any child should. She stood on the Capitol steps. No microphone, no speech. Just a hand-painted sign, "I am Alejandra." The cameras found her anyway. CNN cut live from the hearing room. Reporters sprinted down the marble stairs. One whispered, "Is it really her?" She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She just stood there clutching the sign with both hands as if it was the only thing anchoring her to the world. Inside the hearing room, someone handed Jasmine a tablet. She looked at the screen. Her lips parted slightly. She knew. Everyone knew. Ivanka tried to look away, but the live feed was now projected behind her on a jumbo screen. The chamber fell silent again. No more denials, no more PR spin. Just a child. Alive, real, and undeniable. And for the first time, even Ivanka Trump couldn't hide behind power. The chamber hadn't recovered from the silence when Jasmine stood again. This time she wasn't holding evidence, she was holding hope. A thick stack of papers neatly bound, but trembling ever so slightly in her hands, like it knew the weight it carried. She stepped forward to the center of the room, cleared her throat, and said, "This bill is not just policy, it's a promise." The title printed in black, Global Supply Chain Transparency Act, but above it, handwritten in red ink, one name, the Alejandra Act. A ripple moved through the room. Journalists whispered. A few staffers wiped their eyes. Jasmine continued. For every girl who was told to keep quiet, for every child whose bruises were buried under profits, for every voice that wasn't loud enough to reach this chamber, we write their names in law. The bill mandated end-to-end tracking of labor in U.S.-affiliated global supply chains. It required third-party audits. It criminalized the use of underage labor overseas in exchange for federal incentives. But more than that, it said, "We saw you, we failed you, and we won't fail the next girl." As she placed the document on the official desk, the camera caught something else. A single line at the bottom of the page, scribbled by Jasmine in her own handwriting. "This one's for the girl who kept sewing when she should have been playing." It wasn't a courtroom anymore. It wasn't even politics. It was history. 6 weeks after the hearing, the white dress, the one Alejandra stitched through blood and silence, was placed behind bulletproof glass at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. The once sparkling symbol of power now lay under dim lighting, surrounded by quiet. Children on school field trips passed by it. Veterans, mothers, senators. No one said much, they just looked. Some leaned in to read the small bronze plaque beneath the glass. It didn't mention Ivanka. It didn't mention politics. Only 6 words, threaded by hands too young. One visitor left a single white rose on the museum floor. Another wrote on the guest book, "May we never wear silence again." And outside, under the flags of a nation still learning how to reckon with itself, a little girl stood with a sign, "I am still Alejandra." The hearings were over. The headlines had shifted, But the wound was still open. In a quiet studio with no flags, no gavels, no chaos, Jasmine Crockett sat alone facing the camera. No fire in her tone, no courtroom theatrics, just clarity. The anchor asked, "Do you have anything left to say to America?" Jasmine looked directly into the lens. There was a long pause. Then came the kind of question that doesn't need an answer, only silence. If one little girl can pull a single thread and unravel an empire built on silence, privilege, and white fabric, what else are we still ignoring? The camera didn't cut away. She didn't blink. The question isn't, was this legal? The question is, was this ever human? And for the first time, even the networks that once muted voices like hers kept the mic on. Jasmine never asked for Ivanka to be arrested. She never screamed for handcuffs. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition. It was about remembrance. It was about one child and every other child who was made invisible. In her closing statement, Jasmine looked around the chamber that once applauded privilege and now sat in silence. "You want justice," she said. "Justice isn't always a prison sentence. Sometimes justice is seeing what you tried so hard to ignore." She held up a copy of the Alejandra Act. "I don't need Ivanka behind bars. I need her behind the truth. And I need this country to stop pretending these children don't exist." The gavel never struck again, because some hearings never truly end. No music, no narration, just the steady, slow zoom of the camera. Alejandra stood on the Capitol steps this time, not in a factory, not in fear. In her arms, a thick folder. Stamped in red, the Alejandra Act. She wasn't crying. She wasn't smiling. She was simply seen. The camera didn't move. It lingered, as if to say, this isn't a finale. It's a beginning. No credits rolled. Just a single line faded in over black. Her hands stitched silence. Now they hold change. Silence is complicity. If a 13-year-old girl could pull a single thread and unravel an empire, then what could we do if we chose to speak up? This story wasn't just about Alejandra. It was about the millions like her, unseen, unheard, undervalued. And it reminds us, justice doesn't start in a courtroom. It starts with truth. Be brave. Ask the hard questions. Be the voice, even if you feel invisible. Because sometimes one voice is all it takes to spark a revolution. If this story made you pause, subscribe now to help us uncover the truths others won't. Hit that subscribe button, because every follower is one more voice against injustice. You might be the next person who changes everything.